Hi, this is Victoria Longo with this week's Friday at 5. Thank you all for joining me. If you are enjoying these weekly videos, please make sure to like my channel, subscribe so that you get notified each week when I post a new video. And thank you so much for supporting me in this. I have a lot of fun talking about these subjects and sharing information that I've learned over the years. And so this week we're actually going to take the topic a little bit back. So a lot of the focus the last couple of weeks has been for people who already are in a relationship and some things that they may be experiencing, some things that might be coming up for them. Right? And so this is actually all about starting a relationship. So if you're single, this might be the video for you to hopefully help you create what it is, the relationship that you're looking for, right? So the topic is the right partner for you. And I don't think this is given a lot of consideration. At least when I was growing up, my knowledge of relationships was you find one, right? You be in one, you get married, you have kids, you start a family. There was never any advice on other than find somebody who's nice, somebody who has a nice job, who is smart or educated, things like that, but never more than that. It was just, and even looking back at some of my friends in college, you go to college, you graduate and you get married and you start your family. And so I think a lot of people end up putting the emphasis on just the relationship. Let's just find somebody to be in a relationship with, right? They might not have things that we like, qualities that we like. Some things might make us crazy, but either it'll change when we get married or we ignore it because we just want to get married and get started with this next chapter, right? So not, from what I see, not a lot of consideration into the kind of partner that we want. And this is so, so crucial because marriage is not the finish line where you get married and everything's okay and that's it, right? You have the guy or the girl and you don't have to do anything else. That's actually where things just get started, right? The longer that you're together, the more, I don't want to say the more work there is, but that's where you really have to, you want to have this connection with somebody because it makes it easier. It doesn't make it work to be in a relationship long term. Most of the time, if you're in a relationship for a long time with somebody who you really enjoy and who is compatible for you with some of the things that I'm going to be going over next, the relationship tends to be fairly easy because you like each other, because you're friends, because you have this connection that exists beyond just the relationship. But I see a lot of people, especially when you're younger, right? The push again to get married, to have kids, to start a family. Not a lot of consideration going into the actual partner that you're choosing. And so, maybe at that point, it's just, hey, I want to get married and have kids. I'm ready to start a family. You're ready to get married and have some kids. So, this is perfect. And there's no consideration beyond that, right? And so you have your kids and you raise them and then they grow up and it's like, who is this person that I'm married to? Because there was never anything beyond that. And that's okay. Except our society says that you can't just leave a relationship because you're no longer a match, because you've realized that you're not happy with the person that you're with, because you're different and because you have different interests and different, desires and goals for life. You can't leave. So sometimes people will create drama. Sometimes, people will, you stay because of the kids, because you can't leave, because, again, you don't just get divorced because you don't like the person, because you don't have a connection. And I think that's the stupidest reason to stay together, personally. You're teaching your kids, one, by example, that's the relationship that they're supposed to have. At least, that's the relationship that they're going to attempt to mirror. Because it doesn't matter if you say, find somebody that you love. Kids tend to pick up by example and what they see. And so if what they're seeing, especially if it's in their parents, their friends' parents and in their own home, that this is what relationships look like, then that's what they're going to grow up thinking relationships look like, no matter what you say. And so I think it really is damaging for kids to actually stay together when you don't enjoy each other, when you don't connect with your partner, because they're learning that disconnect is normal and that disconnect is what it's supposed to be like in a relationship. So, it's one thing to get married and have kids, but if that's all you want, acknowledge that. And that's okay. It's okay to just want to find somebody because you're young and you can't have kids when you're older and this is the person that came along. But if things don't work out, don't crucify and punish that person. And I think a lot of times, at least in a handful of examples that I've seen where they end up divorced or separated, it's like you got married and you had the kid that you wanted, and now you're realizing that this partner is not who you wanted, and those qualities that you ignored because you just wanted to get married and have kids are now paramount because you're spending the rest of your lives together potentially, right? And you're seeing that. And so that becomes a huge issue. And then, we start criticizing and cutting them down for who they always were, instead of just recognizing like, hey, I wanted to get married and have kids. You wanted to get married and have kids. We had our kids. Maybe we should separate now. We don't match. We don't get along. And so, but we don't do that. We blame and we, point the finger and do everything else, except acknowledge what's actually so. Right. And so, it takes a lot of courage to actually look at this though. And, maybe we're not even being honest with ourselves that this is all we wanted to get married for because this is what we've been taught to do. But if we can acknowledge that, then it does take pressure off our partner into, being something that they weren't. They were really just a sperm donor, which is fine. Or, an egg donor, again, which is fine. But our society makes it so wrong to just want that. Our society makes it so that you have to stay together no matter what, and you have to make it work, right? And so I'm going to throw out there, and maybe this will help you if you are in a relationship and things aren't connecting. I'm not telling anybody just to walk away. You have to do what's right for you, and maybe take into consideration, what kind of partner do you have, and what kind of partner do you actually need and require in your life. So when I ended my last relationship, which was the one that I should have been in, right, and I should have started a family after college, I took a lot of time. I took about 2 years, I think, to really connect with me and figure out, all right, the life that I thought I was supposed to have isn't happening. The one that I was told by everybody that I was supposed to do. So what now? And I actually really was in a situation where I was starting from scratch. I had lost everything with the end of that relationship. And by everything, I mean my house, my job, the dogs, some of the dogs that we had, the relationship that I had been in for the last 8.5 years. And I was having to move into my parents' basement because I had nothing, right? So I really was starting over from scratch, and I really needed to figure out how I was going to rebuild my life. And one of the things that I did look at is what type of relationship I actually want, because the one that I had didn't work. And there are a lot of reasons why obviously it didn't work, because we're not together. But what I realized is he was the type of person that he loved to be home. He loved to, watch TV all the time and watch movies and, just hang out at home, and didn't really, had some friends, but, wasn't really a big fan of socializing. Didn't really like doing different activities. And so I tried to give that part of me up for a long time, because I do like to socialize. I actually don't like to sit in front of the TV. I don't even have cable anymore. I will watch TV, but I usually I'm not one that binge watches. That's not me. I'll watch an episode of something before I go to bed, like one, and then the next night maybe I'll watch the other. But I can't sit really for a long time in front of the TV. I like to try different things. I like to travel to different places. He didn't. So when I started looking at all of those things that I had given up for the sake of the relationship, to try to make that work, which ended up making me unhappy, when I was looking for my next partner, I wanted the qualities of either having somebody who was social, having somebody who did like to travel, did like to experience new things, didn't want to be a homebody, didn't want to, sit on the couch every night watching TV. Somebody who didn't expect me to be home to cook every night because maybe there was something I wanted to do and I couldn't be home. So, I took all of these things into consideration for myself when I was looking at what type of partner would work for me when I started dating again. I like to have freedom. I don't like to be made to feel guilty when I do things that I like, because that was what I experienced in my last relationship. It was like, all right, I don't want to go. And this was towards the end where I really was trying to, I needed something because I was so frustrated and so stressed. So I would want to go on a trip or try something new. And I would get, well, yeah, go ahead and have fun. So I'd go, but knowing when I came home, there would be the guilt trip. There would be the arguments of, how I could make that choice to go for myself, right? So, I needed somebody who would give me the freedom to actually pursue this on my, to pursue these interests without that guilt, without those arguments, without making me feel bad for being a person. Right. So those were some of the things that I needed and that I wanted to look for. And, I added other things into my list. I wanted somebody who was funny, somebody who was intelligent, somebody who was respectful. And, I kind of made a list and I wrote them out and I forgot about it. But what that did is when I actually looked at, sat down and looked at what type of qualities I wanted in my partner, when I did start dating again, I would I would analyze what what my date was saying. So there were several guys who didn't want me to be an entrepreneur. And I was like, okay, that's, I can't be with you. They didn't like somebody who was out. They wanted somebody who was going to be home 5 nights a week. And I was like, okay, you're off the list. And so, even though I wasn't consciously, bringing the list to every date and checking off like, okay, is he respectful? Is he this? Is he that? I had the awareness of what I wanted. And so when I did go out on dates, I was able to compare it back to what it was I was looking for. And I didn't make the choice to create a relationship with somebody just because they showed up, right? Just because they were in front of me and it was the easy choice to make. I really looked at, I'm creating for the long term, and I'm in the place and space where I want somebody who's going to be able to create a relationship long term. And I knew that if I had settled, and this is a trap that so many people get into because their own insecurities, their own fears, they don't think it's going to work out anywhere else. So they settle for what's in front of them instead of trusting that there is somebody out there. And this can go, beyond even dating and partnerships, right? This can go, we settle for the job that we're in because it's easier to be there, and it's more scary to actually look for something else because we think it's going to be more of the same. So we'll stay with what we know instead of trusting that the job that we're asking for is out there, right? So you can translate this to so many other areas of your life. But if we're able, well, two things. So if we meet somebody and we've been alone for a long time and they're not quite perfect, but we know it and we choose to be in the relationship anyway, that's our choice. And that's no fault on them if they do things that frustrate us, if they, show qualities. They're not going to change when we get, when marriage happens. They are who they are, who they are. Marriage isn't this switch that's going to make everything better and shift the relationship. The person is the person they are now, and that's who they're going to be in the future. So if we make the choice to be with somebody that we know isn't quite a match, just because we're tired of being lonely, again, it goes back to, we're looking for a sperm or an egg donor, right? Just acknowledging that that's what we want and there's nothing wrong with it. But when it doesn't work out, not blaming the other person for the faults and the mistakes that happen when really we were just looking for temporary company or, to create, a child or something. So, just, we can blame them, but it's not really fair. And it's not really empowering in my position and my point of view, to sit there and do that, because we're the ones that are settling for less than what we want because we don't trust and we're afraid that we're not going to be able to have what we're asking for. When if we would just step into that space of trusting, and knowing on a bigger level that what we want is possible, it eliminates all of these problems. Because you can meet somebody that is a match. And even if you meet somebody, so when I was dating, I did meet somebody who ticked off almost everything that I was actually looking for in a relationship, except that he didn't want one. And so that was cool with me for a while until it wasn't. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to make the choice to actually find somebody that does want the relationship, right? That does want to create something more permanent, more committed with me. And it wasn't a fault of him. There was no blame. There was no, anything from my part. It was really like, okay, hey, I tried this. It worked for a while. Now it's not working anymore. So I need to find somebody who is. And I trust it. It was scary. It was scary as all get out. But I trusted that the person that I wanted to create a commitment with was going to be out there, and that I wasn't going to have to settle for the scraps. Because the other thing that happens when we settle is we don't feel very good, right? We can tend to be, right? It doesn't feel good to settle for less than, because, when we're getting scraps, it invalidates us. We end up questioning what's wrong with us, why we can't have what we want. There's so many things that come up when we end up settling that are not healthy for us. So holding faith and trusting that there is somebody out there that is perfect, that is a match. So what we want is such a greater space to be in, because we'll find it, and we can create that. But it's, it starts with us knowing and admitting to what it is we're actually looking for. So if you are single, and even if you are in a relationship and maybe things in the relationship haven't been going so well, maybe start looking at what it is I need and what it is that I want from a relationship. And maybe you can start creating it in your current one. If you're single, start asking for that person to show up, because they're out there and they're probably looking for you. Not probably, they're looking for you as much as you're looking for them. It's just a matter of actually, holding the space and trusting that they're going to show up instead of settling for the first thing that comes along. So, if you are going through this process, again, I have a program called Relationships Reimagined, where we do work through this. And we also work through the limiting beliefs that end up having you settle, that have you not feel confident that you can find what it is you're looking for. And so we can work through, all of that together over the course of several months to actually get you to the relationship that you is possible, right? That you know in your heart is available. And so, feel free to email me if you'd like that. Thank you for watching this week. And next week's topic is all about judging others. So I hope that you'll join me next week, and have a great weekend.